All right. Welcome and good evening to everyone, and good afternoon to some on the West Coast. You are here live with me, Shabir Bhegani, the Environmental Special Interest Group Deputy Director, along with our partners here at NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Today with us, we have two guests, Dr. Lonnie Gonsalves and Janae Kent. And you see here on the slide presentation today that they are an environmental scientist, eco forecasting portfolio manager, as well as an oceanographer and communications and user engagement lead, respect, respect, respectfully. And so what I want to do is kind of just toss it right on over to them. So um, Dr. G, if I can say it that way. Like,
That's perfectly fine. Thank you for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. I am absolutely glad to be here with GoFar. This is I'm gonna get right into it, but I must say I'm kind of excited. So let me slow down. I really see the value in building this relationship with NSBE. So I'm glad to have y'all here this evening, and thanks for your time. I'm Lonnie Gonsalves.
And I'm Janae Kent, and we're here to talk to you today about your skills, interest fit with NOAA's mission. But before we do that, we have a question for you, and you can take it, Lonnie.
Yeah, so we really want to step on in here and really start to showcase where your skills in environmental engineering fit into the overall NOAA mission and overall oceanic and atmospheric sciences. And so for us, our starting question here is what product or service, what NOAA product or service have you used today? What NOAA product or service have you used today? Feel free to enter your answer into the chat box. I know we got folks on Facebook as well, so feel free to enter those comments, or if you can, come on camera. Feel free to answer there. But the question prompt is, what product or service of NOAA have you used today? And I'll count on our host, Shabir, to put those questions to us.
yes.
Okay, looks like we have
Answers, I should say.
it looks like we have a couple of responses. Rain forecast, wind speed, satellite coverage, yes and yes. And the weather app, yes. Yep, you're correct. Let's see if we have a few more responses. Well, actually, you're using NOAA products and services every day, whether you're aware of it or not. Oh, do we have another one? Satellite imaging, GIS. Yes, definitely. And as you mentioned, that includes weather. And no matter where you read the forecast, just know it came from us. GPS, shipping of products, whether you're using it or you're using you have an Apple Watch or some other type of wearable, whether it's food down to the food, because remember that your seafood just didn't land in your plate. It had to get there, right? And so they're using NOAA products to get that seafood on your plate, as well as weather, and not just weather, but the climate forecast. So, okay. I see there's
So could I ask a question then about that then?
yes,
So
yes.
does that mean that y'all may have partners with like like with the Weather Channel or with other broadcast groups to help get that weather information out there? Is that
Well, our weather products, not all NOAA data is open and available to the public, but a lot of it is. And for those that are, anybody can go to our website and download or go to cloud platforms like Google, Microsoft, and AWS and get those products. So they don't necessarily have to have a partnership with us to retrieve that information. Just like your local weather forecast office on the news, they're also getting information from there as well. And I see there's in the chat, maybe you can take this, Lonnie, public policy discussion, global warming and what impact. And we might want to touch on that now, or we can talk about that later.
Yeah, that's a good that's a great question. We're going to talk on that a little later in the presentation, but I'll say yes, we as an agency are providing the environmental data, the modeling and forecasting that helps inform those policy decisions around everything from ocean policy to what we do on land. And we got a particular section in here where we'll talk specifically about climate change and what NOAA is doing. So thanks for that question. I appreciate the answers there. You know, I think that for us, we recognize that NOAA does not have the same name recognition, right, as a Department of Defense or a NASA. And so for us, we want to go out and recruit the best and brightest of America. And we know that there are tons of very talented STEM professionals in engineering and other STEM fields within NSBE. And we recognize that how can we get you into our agency and working with us and partnering with us if you don't know our name, right? And you're not sure of our mission. And so we see this presentation as an introduction to NOAA. We hope this is not just a one-off, but a continuous conversation. And our goals really are all about improving the visibility of NOAA's mission and the interdisciplinary nature of ocean and atmospheric science. We want to increase the number and diversity of applicants to NOAA jobs and student opportunities, especially with organizations such as NSBE. And number three, we want to improve engagement with NSBE professionals who can help become a part of the NOAA R&D enterprise, actually going out and applying for our grants, partnering with us on our different science areas, and on the policy piece, helping be a partner when it comes to policy and using our information and data to inform both policy and regulations. Little housekeeping as we go in, and I'm gonna speed up just a little bit here. As you can already see, we want questions. We want this to be interactive, so feel free throughout this talk to interrupt us with any questions, with any comments you might have. Perfectly okay. We're going to be leaving this slideshow as a reference. There's going to be some additional information on the back end that you'll find useful, especially on student opportunities. So you will have this as a reference, this presentation. Speaking of student opportunities, we do want to put in a little bit of a plug. We have been invited to contribute to two sessions at the NSBE annual convention here coming up. So we appreciate the invite from the Environmental Engineering SIG. We're going to be talking specifically about student and job opportunities at the convention, as well as have our lead for artificial intelligence talking about its applications, AI applications to environmental science. Lastly, I'll say this is all about people-to-people connections. Janae and I have worked together for several years. I learned this lesson, I continue to have it reinforced every single day, as these people-to-people connections are most important. And so even after this talk, make sure you reach out to us with additional questions. Use us as a resource and as sort of one of your key points of contact with the agency to get things started. So speaking of the people connection, let me get this rolling here. We haven't even barely introduced ourselves, right? So I want to let today you go first and provide a little more introduction.
Okay. Hello again, everybody. I am an oceanographer for the National Ocean Service, but currently I'm in a temporary position, a temporary assignment as a communications / user engagement and ocean data technical lead for the NOAA Big Data Project program, excuse me. And I initially joined NOAA through a student temporary employment program internship, now known as Pathways, with the National Weather Service at Wakefield, Virginia. The weather forecast office was not too far from the college I was attending, Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. And so fast forward a couple of years after my internship, I was hired as an oceanographic data analyst contractor working for the National Ocean Service at the Center for Operational Oceanographic Products and Services, co-ops for short. And in my position, I was responsible for the data analysis of water level data collected in support of the National Water Level Observations Network. And you might not have ever heard of that before, but that's where information comes from when you are talking about sea level rise. you're getting that from over the 200 plus stations that we have along the coast, U.S. territories in the Caribbean and the like. So after a few years, I became a federal employee as an oceanographer for the same office. And I was a contractor for about 4.5 years. And in the federal position as an oceanographer, the generation of the annual tide and tidal current tables, analyze ocean data, and interface with users to help them use our data for their needs. So communications and user engagement lead / technical data lead for the NOAA Big Data program, I help Amazon, Google, and Microsoft understand NOAA's ocean data, and they in turn provide public access to NOAA's data on their cloud platforms through public-private partnerships. And being in this role helps me to learn new skills and merge my current interests professionally and personally. I took a chance to try something new, and I found out that I like it. And even if I didn't like it, that would still be important information for me to gain as I continue to grow in my career. So Lonnie, tell us how you got in your position.
Yeah, and so for me, I'm a Eastern North Carolina native. I went to undergrad at East Carolina University and actually had one professor, undergraduate, one black professor in the biology department. He happened to be the one that pulled me to the side. And Dr. Anthony Overton, he said, you know what, Lonnie, all that training that you're doing in biotechnology and molecular biology, you know, we apply that to questions in environmental science. Specifically for me, it was looking at fish health and the impact of land use on fish habitat. Looking at what if you're going to go out and build a Walmart or a big housing development, how is that going to impact areas like the Chesapeake Bay? And I found that to be pretty cool. He's the one person that connected me with a graduate program that was funded by NOAA over at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. So I gave my HBCU connection and took the trip up there and started a graduate program. I was able to work in concert with NOAA scientists, and that landed me my job as a research ecologist at the time with NOAA. There's a big opportunity there. I worked both in the lab doing some cool stuff and doing a lot of cool stuff out in the field. You see me out there with the big striped bass there. After a couple of years, I said, hey, I want to grow. I want to see what else is out there. And so fortunately, I had a good manager, good supervisor that supported that growth. And I had some executive sponsors there, some folks that had seen what I could do and that were willing to raise their hand and say, hey, let's plug Lonnie into this next opportunity. So I actually got to go to NOAA headquarters and begin working more on the programmatic and policy side and getting some exposure to leadership training there during the Obama administration. And that is what helped me come to my point now, where now it's less of boots on the ground scientists and more about doing the programmatic and science portfolio management side of the house. And it's been a great journey so far and allowed me to get a seat at the table in conversations, not just around the science and science planning and strategic thinking, but also being able to push big initiatives around diversity and inclusion and workforce development, which is a part of what has brought me here to you guys here today, here with NSBE. And so one thing that we want to highlight in telling our story is the connection between technical skills, technical STEM skills, and how they drive opportunities. And my big thing I always tell students and professionals, I have to tell myself oftentimes, remind myself, is that there's abundance of opportunities out here, but the key point is you have to match your STEM skills and keep an open mind about what opportunities are out there so that you can match your STEM skills and your interest to open new doors of opportunity and get you into that spot within your career path that you want to go to. Thinking about that and think about how you apply your STEM skills and expertise to your interests is really going to be a key point that not only has you looking at those potential career paths that are right there, right there in front of your face that are being shown to you, but also some new opportunities as you continue to learn. And
I would like to add too that, now that we're here, we're reaching back. We want to bring more with us. And that's one of the reasons why we're here today as well.
So we're going to use an example, Noaa as an example today. And that is because Noaa is an interdisciplinary agency where our entire mission is interdisciplinary. And we have the figure here on screen that talks about the coastal intelligence. To gather environmental data, just that one function of our mission, you see from this diagram, we're using everything from satellites, LIDAR, ocean-going vessels, buoys, uncrewed systems, drones. Essentially, we're doing observations everywhere from the bottom of the ocean to outer space. And that takes a lot of engineering through that process.
And it's continuously being observed. We're always collecting that data. And all this data requires experts who understand data assimilation and management, IT systems, applied math and modeling, as well as environmental scientists and forecasters that understand how to best put this data to use.
Quick question. So for the oceans that you guys, or waterways that you guys are monitoring, is that only around the United States, or do you get a chance to go across the globe and like monitor the other bodies of water?
Okay, so for my office, yes, we do have water level stations that are, and there's also buoys that are from another office in Noaa that are constantly observing the water level and water conditions around the contiguous United States, but also Pacific Islands, the Caribbean, as well as Puerto Rico is a part of the United States, Cuba at one time, not now, but at one time. But we also provide tide and tidal current predictions for many, many thousands of stations, not only for the US, but for the entire globe. And that means they're sending us their data, or we're providing it based off of observations we've done in the past, but we're not currently collecting observations. There's quite a few countries that have their own international or hydrographic office where they're collecting their own data, and they'll send it to us and we'll put their information into our publications or provide it online.
Oh, okay. Got it. So that's very helpful because, so as I'm sure you guys may know, NSBE is an international organization. So we have members everywhere. And so those people who may not be on the call, like at this moment, they'll be watching this live replayed on Facebook. And so we want to make sure they know that even if it's not necessarily with Noaa, maybe there is a partner organization that they could possibly join in their country that works similarly to Noaa. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, even in Canada, we do have partnerships with Canada, and we have stations in the Great Lakes. And if they're in their country, if their country is a part of the International Hydrographic Office, then there is actually a meeting that occurs, I think it's about a week annually every year, probably virtually right now, to share the information that each country is utilizing, and they create standards at those meetings that everybody can use. So that, it's something that, everything will be apples to apples when you compare different oceanographic data sets.
And could you say that organization again for us?
The International Hydrographic Office.
Okay. I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Yeah. And I think you hit right on the point there, Shabir, is that those partnerships. So we have our array of observations, but we're integrating data from partners like NASA and others. We're doing the international work in partnership that helps drive things like tsunamis and tsunami warnings to global climate models there. Those are all built off those networks and partnerships that are both domestic and international.
Wow.
And so I have a question. We got a question for the audience here. So we talked about we talked big, right, about these applications of interdisciplinary STEM and how engineering starts to apply to different Noaa mission areas. And so we like to play a little bit of game here. Question for the audience in the challenge here. My bet is if you name your area of STEM expertise or your area of engineering, that we can ID where that fits into Noah. So please don't embarrass us, but try to stump us here, right? And so I'm gonna ask this question again. What is your area of STEM expertise? And please pop that into the chat box as well. And Janae and I are gonna see if we can identify specifically for you some areas of application within NOAA and the overall ocean and atmospheric sciences there. So we'll take a few of these here before we move to the next slide. What is your area of STEM expertise?
This is a good question, and I think we have a few respondents so far. Go ahead, Janae. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, I see. So soil science and chemical engineering.
Yeah.
I'll let you take the soil science.
Yeah, I like that one.
Engineering.
So one thing you heard me mention when I told my story about land use impacts on, I said Chesapeake Bay, but land use impacts on coastal and estuary marine systems. Those are the bays. Just think about bays. One thing that we need is to understand soil science and soil chemistry to understand how, for example, when it rains, based on how we're utilizing land patterns, how much pollution we may end up putting and loading into these estuaries, into these bays, into these coastal ocean areas there. Contaminants, by way, it might be directly soil. It might be carbon, it might be nutrients. It also might be chemical contaminants we typically think about, whether it's legacy contaminants like PCBs or contaminants of emerging concerns. But understanding that soil composition and how it impacts runoff and modeling those impacts is a key component of us being able to actually give information to counties, to states, give information to FDA and EPA folks that regulate agriculture. That type of modeling and forecasting helps update regulations and best practices for a number of industries so that we can protect areas such as the Chesapeake Bay and other big estuaries and coastal areas across the U.S.
And I would like to add to that, I don't think I've even told you this, Lonnie, but I was a geology major for a little while. Okay, so what you might not think about when you think about soil science, to elaborate a little bit more, is that if you're looking at ocean acidity, okay, and how that ties into the change in composition of soil, that's one thing to note as well. But although NOAA is one of the only federal agencies that crosses most sectors in every discipline, that is something that we would probably also work with the USGS on. And that would be, gosh, I'm losing my, late in the day, I'm forgetting the United States Geological Survey. That would be something that we would work with them on. That would be more of a partnership. And that partnership may be already there, but you have to understand, if it is a coastal location, that you're thinking about the acidity of the water and how it affects the soil. And now chemical engineering. Lonnie, do you want to take that one, or I can try?
Yeah, I'll speak to chemical engineering a little bit there. And that could take sort of multiple, I know there's multiple ways of interpreting that, but the things I'm thinking about in terms of chemical engineering, number one, understanding, we oftentimes bind chemicals in terms of stressors, environmental stressors there. And so there's a whole science behind both degradation, how long does this stuff stick around, where does it transport to, what are ultimately the ecological impacts and environmental impacts, and not just stopping that environment, but actually our work is all about being applied science. It needs to have a direct linkage back to things like human health and economics. So ultimately, what is going to be the impact back to human health and the public in certain cases? We also do things where we work on a lot of sensor technology. I'll mention this when it comes to that water treatment one. I'll wrap in environmental engineering a little bit here. When we look at things such as I work a lot with harmful algal blooms. Have you heard of red tide down in the Gulf of Mexico and other areas there? They have these big blooms of algae. Those algae sometimes produce toxins. Those toxins get people sick. And so we have folks that work specifically and using chemical engineering, using sensor technology to actually be able to detect those toxins. Working ourselves in the lab and with our partners in the private sector, develop that sensor technology and doing some of that chemical engineering so that we can pass some of that technology, for example, to some of our tribal entities in Alaska who don't want to eat contaminated shellfish. So we do the engineering, develop the sensor technology, pass it to them, and now they're able to monitor a lot better, and that helps protect their health. We also, and this speaks to the water treatment side, and again, hitting on halves, are working on technology to actually degrade blooms, degrade toxins. Deepwater Horizon, we had a Deepwater Horizon spill. We had a ton of effort going into monitoring and tracking where that oil went, how it distributed, how it broke down, what were the impacts, as well as efforts to see how can we remediate some of those contaminants there. So there's a lot of direct applications at the chemistry end, at the engineering end that informs the engineering and informs remediation of those items. And I spoke about water a lot there. I should also speak to the fact that it's not just in the water or in the soil, it's also in the air, where we do a lot of atmospheric chemistry, looking at ammonia transport, looking at carbon transport. There's tons of chemistry that go into powering the overall answers to questions about the fate of contaminants and their impact on the environment.
Now, for the other suggestions that came up, and I know we're at about the 30-minute mark, so we're going to move on with our presentation, but we will touch on strategic planning. Like, you can't be in any type of organization or business without having strategic planning. And any project that we do is thoroughly planned, especially if we need to report back. You know, we get our funding from the federal government. And so we need to report back. Usually with hurricanes, we are provided funds and we have to do a strategic planning and organizing so that, you know, where we have to procure contractors and everything for the construction of water level stations or places. And also with water level, there is, and this is going to be a little technical, but just to mention it, you need to know what the elevation of the water is in respect to the land to build anything. And so that information is crucial even when you're buying real estate. That's crucial when Walgreens is trying to know where they need to put another building, another location, because they want it to be near CVS. Okay, but they can't put it there if it's inundated, if the soil is inundated with water every time it rains. So project management is very heavy in everything that we do, especially when we're working out in the field. And in the field is a wide range of things that we're going to touch on a little bit more later in our presentation. Thank you so much for participating. We really enjoy doing that.
So we talked about, you got to excuse me because we're flipping multiple tabs here. So we talked about the STEM technical skills, right? And how they fit in to Noaa's mission. That's sort of the how we do our work. What we wanted to do is speak specifically to, we haven't told you, like, what is Noaa's mission? What is the what and what is the why of this whole thing of Noaa and what we're doing and how our work impacts the American public here. And so we wanted to highlight a couple of those pieces here. We got three big, I would say three big chunks of areas that intersect across Noaa's mission that we wanted to bring up, starting with the first one being climate change.
And so you've probably heard a lot of the things that President Biden is trying to conquer in his first 100 days. And one of those topics is climate change. And so many states, local governments, and citizens, topic of climate change is very heavy on their minds and affecting them a lot, especially with the active hurricane season we've had. And so assisting with either preventing or mitigating the effects of climate change and preparing for the expected impacts of rising seas, more severe weather, and other implications of our changing planet are crucial if we want to be able to overcome these events. So Lonnie's going to go through the quad chart here of the pictures to provide more insight.
Yeah, so with climate change, there's a couple of the key drivers there or hazards there. We know sea level rise, we know more frequent and severe storms, coastal flooding, all being storm surge, all being major expected issues there. For NOAA, already mentioned, we're providing a whole suite of observations that are actually allowing us to determine, right, that climate change is actually happening and predicting these impacts, these suspected impacts. On top of that, especially as it comes to engineering, we're driving the science that for things like getting counties and localities, states to invest in things like natural and nature-based infrastructure. This is where the construction management and project management piece comes in. We are doing the foundational science and developing the best practices to demonstrate how green-gray infrastructure, using the living environment, can help be a major factor in mitigating both storm surge and coastal flooding. You see an example of a living shoreline there to the bottom left there on that slide there, where it's not just building up a seawall that's going to crack and bust down and you got to spend money to rejuvenate that, but actually integrate actual restored marsh areas, integrate oysters, in certain cases, build up coral reef habitat there that provides a natural barrier to some of that storm surge and actually grows and gets stronger over time as opposed to having to do a lot of maintenance on just the plain gray infrastructure there. On top of that, we do a lot of GIS applications, a lot of spatial analysis. The maps and the sea level rise projections that we provide actually go into telling municipalities, for example, where to put the hospital, where not to put the hospital, where oil industry has used our mapping and our forecast to be able to say, hey, what's going to happen to their refineries on the Gulf Coast and low-lying areas, or where should they be making investments in infrastructure based on likely sea level rise or storm surge scenarios. One of the big points I want to make here is that in this administration, we are pushing even harder to make sure we're providing services in an equitable manner throughout the U.S. And that means making sure that everybody, including, I'm from the Southeast, I'm from the South, making sure that these low-lying communities, especially where we have a lot of people of color, that we're ensuring our sciences and services are going to these communities to ensure we can help keep people out of danger and mitigate those threats from storm surge, from flooding and other aspects that we expect to get worse from climate change. We want to be able to do that in a way where we're equitable across the U.S. And in order to do that, I know we talked about getting NSBE STEM skills intersected into NOAA, but it's also your diversity in perspectives, your connection back to different diverse communities and understanding of those key challenges and your passion to address those key challenges. That is very important. We need to have folks like you who are engineers, who are STEM professionals, who are thinking about strategic planning, thinking about how best to engage with these communities into the fold so that we can provide these equitable services. And for me, I always like talking to young people because I even think about the energy behind, all the social justice movement over the course of not just this year, but even going past that. And the fact that we want to bring that same passion, that same dedication, along with the STEM talent in so that we can be effective in using science to impact policy, to impact regulations, to help improve all of America, making sure that nobody's left out.
Yes, indeed. And I don't know if if everyone was able to view the video as it, when we turned to the slide, it was playing, but this is actually a video of the damage caused by Hurricane Laura in July 2020 at the Bob Hall Pier in Corpus Christi, Texas. And that's a pier that's been long-standing. That station that was at the end of the pier was shored up for a hurricane, okay? And you see that it did not survive. And those are things that's why we have that type of instrumentation in locations like that, so that we know how high the water level was when it hit a certain location, so that they can make sure they are, and when they're planning, when they're doing their emergency planning, that they know what to look out for next go round.
And so a second area, a mission area we'll speak to is commerce. Now, Noaa is one of the biggest bureaus in the Department of Commerce. So clearly we want our science to help drive economic development across the US. And much of that focus we talk about, we refer to the blue economy. What it means in a nutshell is the economic sectors, and there's a lot of them, that depend upon having a healthy ocean and a predictable ocean. Predictable going back to all those environmental observations that utilize different aspects of engineering, and a healthy environment, because as we know, nobody wants to go to the beach and have polluted water when they get there. And so I'll turn it over to Jena to speak to some of those examples of blue economy.
And so the upper left image is a ship going underneath a bridge, utilizing an air gap sensor so that it doesn't hit the bridge. So knowing the water level is crucial when entering and exiting ports, so that they don't make mistakes like that. So that goes again, the engineering of a bridge and making sure that most type large ships like that, and the ships are only getting larger, can fit through underneath all these types of bridges. And so you need to know the water. And just for a little bit of other extra information, they can't, for instance, that ship might not be able to come under the bridge during high tide. They need to come in under low tide. And so these imports and exports are essential, from the clothes we wear to the antibacterial wipes that we were missing for a very, very long time. But that just goes to show you the global supply chain and how heavily it's used based on what's going on in the ocean. So the next picture below that is an image of someone fly fishing in a sanctuary. She needs to know the water level, because otherwise she could be overcome by the water. An upper left, fisheries support the seafood industry. And the other image is just something to show you all the data that we're putting out, making available to the public.
And I see a question in the chat. Yeah, I want to address this one about rural areas affected by hurricanes, because I think that's a very good one that speaks to both climate and economics. Good example where we're involved. I'm from Eastern North Carolina, so a hurricane vet, if you will. One example is where even before the storm, it is NOAA data and forecasts that are feeding into the actual sort of higher resolution maps and forecasts of storm surge and of potential flooding. We work with both our own data and observations and our federal partners to be able to tell you what's coming from the ocean and what's coming down from the rivers themselves to impact that coastal flooding. Another piece that's a little less well known. If you were to look at the news after a hurricane, you start to see these before and after images of flooding. That's actually oftentimes NOAA that's going out and doing these overflights to actually where we have the images before, these high resolution images, use a lot of technology, a lot of engineering to develop the cameras and sensors, and the use of both crewed and uncrewed flights to be able to get a before and after snapshot of the flooding. Those images are not just for the news. They actually allow for insurance companies to assess damage, to get people paid out a lot faster, to get them back to regular life there in coastal communities, especially those rural locations that get to be a little bit harder to assess. It allows it allows our emergency managers to pre-position equipment and supplies and get those out to people properly and in a safe fashion. So you see multiple uses of, again, those observations and those forecasts to not just keep people out of harm's way, but to build back even after these disasters. Good question.
And that emergency response imagery is a data set that he's referring to, and that those images go back to 2003. And that's also for non-hurricanes, but any severe weather.
And so this last piece we'll highlight as sort of the third bucket here is Noaa's drive and push for environmental stewardship. And again, that stewardship piece actually crosses all these start to come together with commerce and climate there. So Noaa plays a big role in establishing marine protected areas, for example, places like our national marine sanctuaries, our national monuments there. We actually go out and determine, based off traditionally how people are utilizing these environments, what's there in terms of, whales, sea turtles, fish, what areas are providing special habitat around our coast and in the oceans. This is not just a coastal thing, but it's also within the broader ocean. And we want to do work to help protect those areas and sustain those areas there. Where this ties it back into engineering is the fact that this is not just a traditional old school Discovery Channel, Jacques Cousteau going and diving and seeing some cool stuff. It's a lot more advanced than that. We use engineering and technology to be able to do things like go find shipwrecks, right? Using LiDAR and sonar and other technology and preserving these historical sites based on that archaeology. We use, when we go out and want to assess marine mammal health, things like whales. It's just, whales are endangered species, often many species are. You can't just go out and just touch the whale. But we can use things like aerial vehicles, drones, to take pictures and use technology, software, and the mathematic models to be able to assess their health, to be able to actually take biological samples from the blowhole non-intrusively, to be able to assess their health and establish the habitats that they utilize and protect those habitats from threats. I can keep going on, but environmental stewardship is a major component of what we do across Noaa, and engineering does have direct applications to those efforts, especially when it comes to endangered species. And the last part of this I want to highlight especially is Noaa's efforts to drive ocean exploration. It's something we're very proud of, and as you can see from this video, is heavy engineering, everything from mechanical engineering to electrical to camera technology, the sensors, communications.
You say computer engineering? Computer engineering?
Computer engineering as a part of that mix, heavy mix. And so I highlight ocean exploration because I think this is one we're going to have to pick back up on another time as well, because they do live cast of ocean exploration expeditions. So there's going to be some this summer where you can actually see the live dive of some of these submersibles that go down. A lot of engineering goes in to be able to make these uncrewed dives as well as crewed dives down to the bottom, in this case, using the uncrewed systems to get down to the very bottoms of the ocean there. And that drives that stewardship, right? We want to know where are these rare species, where are some of these rare habitats that we discover and may want to protect. But also on top of that, the commerce, utilizing this technology to go to a wind energy industry and help them cite where you put that ocean wind energy, those ocean wind turbines there, and help impact ocean and gas exploration and the whole energy commerce there. That plays a big role. It allows us to see where there's essential fish habitat and where we can continue to protect that so that, those coastal fishermen, the towns that rely on those coastal fishermen can continuously take advantage of those resources there. So I think the ocean exploration piece is one that's pretty cool. I want to highlight that as one that you guys can participate in virtually. And as we continue the conversation in the future there, we'll also talk about some opportunities for students to get involved in more hands-on applications there.
I'm so glad you guys actually mentioned computer science because I know nowadays it seems like everything is tied to computer science or computer engineering, and maybe that might be an area of interest for some of our students who may have their engineering degree, but they're like, you know what, maybe should I get into IT? Should I be at the nexus of the two? Should I kind of where should I
Yep.
be? And so I think this is a good organization to where you can be a person who's interested in environmental, and say if you have a passion for IT as well, you can find your home here at Noaa.
And IT
Oh, yeah.
professionals are the largest group of professionals at Noaa, actually.
There we go.
Yeah, and I think about things like artificial intelligence. The fact is, back in the day when I was coming into the agency, it was all about, hey, if we want to see how many fish are in the sea, we send a crew out on a boat. You dive, you take drag nets, you take samples, and you count the fish. Now we're continuously incorporating that computer science side with artificial intelligence, to where there's science now. You instead of sending out all the crews, you can put down, depending on the species, of course, but you can put down a camera that uses AI to recognize fish species and automatically measure the size and be able to tell you what sex the fish is and how many are in there. Do your counts, bring back all that data, and that goes into those type of habitat models that allow us to do a lot of applications, whether it's commercial, stewardship, or even the climate impacts, looking at the climate impacts on habitat as well. So a lot of applications of the computer science side. We kept saying and mentioning all the environmental data we bring in. It takes computer science folks to be able to do the data assimilation, the data storage, the applied mathematics and the modeling and creating the IT infrastructure that allows us to feed that data and to forecast out whether it's your weather or whether it's the hurricane coming. All those aspects take a high volume of computer science and IT savvy.
Yes, I mean, because almost every office that has a data product has a website that needs to be maintained. You have people on-prem that usually need assistance. Right now, it's a little bit remote, but we still have the need for those individuals as well. But I also wanted to talk to something in the chat. There was a question, what are the majors that someone can be a part of the Noaa team? And that's why, in the beginning, we went through, name the discipline. It is at Noaa. Business, it's at Noaa. Web design, communications, user engagement, scientists, engineering, you name it, here.
And we did mention, some of my colleagues would slap my hand for this, social science.
Oh,
Folks
yes.
who are specifically
Social
interested in
science.
social science, understanding human behaviors. I mentioned, for example, that green-gray infrastructure and the construction of it. We don't just want to put that kind of stuff out there, right? We want to be able to use social science to understand what is going to be the human value of saying, putting a seawall in that's gray versus creating a park, constructing some type of living in nature-based type of protection system. You can put a seawall in there, but people are just like, that looks, they don't want to see that necessarily. Or you could do something better with nature that brings value, that brings tourism, that brings recreation, that brings a lot of value to those communities who live nearby. We need social science to be able to assess that and make those decisions there. So the short answer to the majors, I really would say it's a cross STEM discipline type of agency with multiple applications there.
You name it, it's there. Now, we had a couple of questions that we wanted to ask our participants. The first question is, what factors influence your career decisions? And the second question is, what are the most effective ways to reach you? Is it via social media, email blasts, text, conferences, YouTube videos? What is it for you?
And you want everyone to put it in the chat, right?
Yes, please put in the
Yep.
chat.
Okay. Y'all, we'll give it a few minutes. And those on Facebook, please don't forget to put it in the chat there. We have our very own Takia is watching the Facebook for us. So if you're there watching, please be sure to leave a question and we'll get right to you.
Professional development opportunities, career advancement. So what are you asking, Ms. Young?
I think that's the answer to question
First
number
question.
one,
Oh, okay.
which is a
Well, okay.
great point, and one that I
That
think
is.
folks are more and more recognized. I especially think with, I like to say I'm still young, I'm only 39, but
You didn't have to tell your age,
even,
Lonnie.
even with an even younger generation, the idea being that, it's not the same of just, like I think about my dad, my folks are just coming in and working a job for the next 30 years. You want to be able to advance. You want to be able to grow. You want to be able to seek new opportunities and help assist the agency even more. And if the agency doesn't do that for you, you're going to go. You're going to find other opportunities there. So I think our agency recognizes that. I think there are a number of opportunities. I myself am a part of our leadership development program within our agency now. And I think that the folks who do well are the ones that are vocal about seeking those opportunities and seek out the type of managers and supervisors who are going to support that growth.
And I would say too, I mean, sometimes we don't always have the advantage of having a great supervisor that will help lead you. But I would always say, look for a mentor. That mentor doesn't have to be lifelong. The mentor doesn't have to be in the same profession as you. It would be nice if you could have a mentor for anything and any interest you have. And it's also good to even sometimes have a mentor that is completely different from you and sees things from a different perspective to help lead you into the right direction. But you're going to have to take a lot of initiative on your part. That's why it's important to know what your interests are and try to marry that with what you want to do in your professional career. We have we have another one: career decision influence factors, job impact, culture, career advancement, pay rate, and location. Yes. And and thankfully, but not right, because COVID has opened a lot of people's eyes to being able to work from anywhere, right? And so now there are more opportunities than there were before, although everybody's still trying to grasp like where we would be and what does that look like, the nature of work. But I think that that's going to be opening up where you can be in different location than where the office is in the future and now, right? And then
Yes.
you have a
And
question.
I want to hit on that location one as well. The thing I want to call out there is that we have coverage from sort of from a research laboratory type of field. We've got coverage all over the coast and in certain areas on the interior of the country. We got spaces, we got marine protected areas. I just saw a job in American Samoa. We got jobs up in Alaska and facilities up there. And so we really do cover the gambit of the coastal states. We cover the, Hawaii and the Pacific Islands. And we have facility. If you're a weather person, we've got facilities all over the interior of the country, between the weather forecast offices that are in almost every state to some of our big research facilities that are out in places like Oklahoma there. So I think that's one thing that the agency offers, is an abundance and diversity of locations to work. I'm looking at the time. I want to make sure to also point out, because this is a good last question here, scholarship opportunities. In this presentation, you don't see it, but when you receive it, you'll see on the back end There's several slides that speak to student opportunities. Again, I want to highlight that at the annual convention, we're going to be going into a deeper dive. But myself, I'm a product. We have a Noaa Office of Education. They fund the Education Partnership Program, EPP. If you look up just Noaa EPP, you're going to come to that site. Real quick, I'll just preview that there's undergraduate opportunities from the Hollings Marine Scholarship and the EPP Scholarship. We also fund whole university consortia and large minority serving institutions largely that focus on each of our Noaa mission areas. They fund both undergraduate scholarship opportunities at those universities and graduate school opportunities at those universities where you're working side by side Noaa scientists and working on real projects that have an impact there. I'll stop there because of time, but you'll have some more of that information in the slides that get shared out with you with the specific program names there. We definitely want you to get interested and involved and be applying to those programs and making sure we're bringing, using those programs as a bridge to bring your talent into our agency.
Thank you so much to everyone for participating today and the questions that we've asked. And thank you so much for just participating with us. It makes giving a presentation like this more beneficial to us because we just want to help you. We want, our goal is to bring back some more people like ourselves that can be a part of Noaa and make a difference.
And we're just very glad to have you guys. Like, this is awesome. I've learned so much. Like I mentioned, so before the call, everyone, for full disclosure, Facebook Live and everyone on the call, I let them know that I had not known much about Noaa. You know, I may have seen them or, you know, recently as we were trying to pull this event together, I kind of looked up Noaa a little bit. But this is very informative, not just for me, but for a lot of those who are joining us today. And I appreciate the partnership. I appreciate all the effort that's into this. And I'm so glad we're going to continue that onward um, through to convention and kind of really helping build that connection and partnership a bit more with Noaa. So I'm glad to hear that. And Sandra, did you have any words to say? Looks like you just unmuted, Sandra. We can't hear you. All right. Well, if we may be having some technical difficulties right now, but either way, I know she extends her gratitude as well for the connection and thanks for the patience it took to really pull this together. And
Can you
so,
guys hear me?
yes, oh, we can hear you now. Yes, go ahead.
Great. So I wanted to say, well, hold on.
And this is almost like a perfect like teaser because now I'm at the edge, like I need to know more. So like what else? Like where are the jobs? Like what what's going on? What is it like working there, the culture? So we'll definitely have to do like another one of these where we, you know, answer some more of those nuanced questions about the experience over the years at Noah. Um, and maybe I kind of, it makes me wonder. I know you guys are being real specific about your intention to partner with us. Like maybe what are the demographics like at Noah? You know, what and does that have a play with the culture, or maybe it doesn't? Maybe it's still just a culture of, you know, what's it called, learning and having broader impact. But I know that's a whole nother discussion for another time. But
You about to? Yes, I
Yeah.
think that's where you just highlighted where it's like we said in the beginning. This is going to be an intro to what we hope is an ongoing engagement and discussion there because I think we just scratched the surface here with
Yes,
this
indeed.
debate. So,
all right. Well, again, thank you guys so much for coming. And everyone, that's Noah. Be sure to follow up, share this video on social media, and ask your friends if they want to know more about Noah and talk more with them. And be in contact with us. Before we go, how can folks reach you guys?
That's the next slide, I believe.
Yeah, thank you for that prompt. Boom. So our emails are there. This slideshow will get shared out to you. I'm also putting my email in the chat box here. And if you ever forget, if you go Janae Kent or Lonnie Gonsalves, you can pull us up on LinkedIn. Feel free to email us. Easy to find us. I think that's one good thing that one of the good things sort of about technology and being a scientist today, and being a scientist of color. We're usually pretty easy to find. So
Yes, we just spot you out.
Good. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. Your energy has been amazing. The engagement with our attendees, greatly appreciated. Lonnie, I know we have been talking about this for quite some time, so I'm so thankful we were able to get it done. There is so much information about this organization. Working, being a government employee myself, I'm really, really excited about the efforts to diversify this arena. You know, I've been in environmental for 25 years, and a lot of times I'm still the only one that enters the room. So this conversation is very important. And I am so thankful that we have good partners that are willing to roll with us. And I mean, we've had some hurdles, but we got there. And so this was really, really good. I love the energy. I got comments about how energetic you guys are, which really makes it easy for us to be able to sell that, hey, this is an entity that is interested in engaging with you about opportunity. Yep. So as you've mentioned before, our conference is coming up. We will have you there as our guest, as our honored guest, to speak at our town hall, which is totally focused on opportunities for our students, for our professionals, for people to just come in and have conversation and learn about Noaa and what Noaa's doing and where they can engage there and find great opportunities for careers in their profession. So that the convention, go to nsbe.org to get more information about registering for that event. It is well worth the time and the effort that it will take you. Again, thank you guys so much for taking time out of your schedule. If you're like me, I'm central, so I'm actually off the clock. And so I know you guys are actually off the clock. And so we really appreciate you coming in and engaging with us at this time slot. I think it has been beneficial. It was beneficial for me. So I know that it was beneficial for our participants. So I'll leave the final words. If you guys want to say anything else, other than that, we will bring this wonderful session to a close.
So I'm just going to end with a thank you. I appreciate the time. Full-blown believer that having more of the students and professionals that are in NSBE engaged in our area of science is going to be something that's not just good for us as an agency, not just good for you, but also good for the nation. So I really do believe that and appreciate the time to come talk and start to make these connections.
Absolutely. And this is not the last. So
that's right. And I couldn't have said it better. Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be a part of this today.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm looking forward to convention, but I'm looking forward to the things we'll be able to do after convention. I think this just starts the conversation. Convention will give us a little bit more to say, hey, let's do this, and we'll do this more frequently until we get it where you guys will say, okay, I had to shut down my LinkedIn page because I've gotten way too much interaction. That's what I'm hoping for. That's my goal. So we'll keep working at it. So thank you so much. Participants, if you have questions, if you think about things later, or if you're watching this video at a later time, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. My email address is environmentdirector@nsbe.org. Again, that's environmentdirector@nsbe.org. You can send us emails. We get correspondence all the time from people who are interested in research, looking for opportunity, and we forward that on. Sometimes they send opportunities to us, and we're able to get that information out to you. So don't hesitate to reach out. We're on all of the social media platforms. I'm going to throw it over to Shabir to tell you about all that, because that's really not my purview. I'm here, but I'm struggling a little bit. So I'll let him tell you a little bit more about that. But we're on that. Reach out, connect with us there, and let's make some things happen in the environmental arena. Shabir, if you can tell them a little bit about our social media presence, and then we will conclude.
Yes, again, thank you, viewers, for listening on Facebook, as well as our attendees live on the webinar. And of course, Noaa team from Jena and Lonnie. We appreciate you guys so much. And thank you to our director, Sandra, for help really bringing this together. For you to follow and keep in touch more with us, please tune in on Instagram. And you can find us at NSBE, ENVSIG. So it's NSBE, ENVSIG. So imagine NSBE, Environmental SIG, but environmental is broken up into the first three letters and then SIG, SIG. So at NSBE, ENVSIG. And then you can also find us on Facebook with the NSBE Environmental Special Interest Group, and you'll see our Facebook group there as well. Until next time, definitely please keep in touch, ask questions, and we look forward to talking with you guys soon. And I think that closes us out. Thank you so much to our IT support and our professionals, PR chair, publications chair, Takia. We appreciate you, and our other environmental board members, environmental SIG board members. So thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.